how I'm using the term natural law today, cause and effect. Cause and effect.
Many people, again, in the New Age community don't want to believe that there's causes and effects, and that effects are driven by causes that, come first and then manifest conditions. So the principle of cause and effect simply states that every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. Every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause.
What's going on, guys? You're tuning into the Cause and Effect podcast, and you know who it is. It's your boy Chico, accompanied by my partners in crime, Fernando and Ralphie. And today we have
what's up?
no crime involved. Today we're accompanied by a very special guest. Her name is Celi, and we just want Celi to, introduce yourself to the audience and let them know who is Celi.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for bringing me here and inviting me here to share my story. I am 100% humbled, privileged, and honored to be here, and I'm excited to see where God takes this. So, Who is Celi? I am a child of God first. Mm-hmm. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I homeschool. I am a CEO. My company is called Mind, Booty, and Soul. And yes, you heard correctly. Mind, Booty, and Soul.
I have to make her repeat
Enterprise.
that. Yeah. I was like, wait a minute. Booty with like
body?
B-O-O-T?
Okay.
Yes, like nalgas for my bilingual people.
Oh, we're going to have fun.
Yeah.
That's dope.
So, you said you're a child of God first. And I like to start off by your early beginnings. Were you always big on your faith with God, or was that something with time that you had to just find?
No, I wasn't always big on faith. To be very honest with you, as a teenager, I felt like God forgot about my family. My mom was 15 years old when she had me. My dad was 14.
Wow.
So I'm the oldest out of 6 siblings. My dad has 6 between 3 different baby mothers. So my mom struggled a lot. We lived in shelters. We were the family that they donated clothes and food and Christmas presents to. Like, I thank you, God, for, programs like Toys for Tots and, those firefighters that don't, pick a family in need and donate gifts, because if it wasn't for, causes like that, I would have never had a Christmas as a child. Wow. So around 16 years old, I was like, you know what? I know God is real, but he forgot about me, so I'm going to forget about him. And I was living in the world. I've always had an entrepreneur spirit, so I don't like answering to people. Don't tell me what to do. At all. Don't. I don't like it.
That's your switch where
yes.
You're like, no more nice. Like, don't tell me what to do.
Don't tell me what to do. I'm a rebel naturally. So having a job where I'm my first job is not gonna be at McDonald's. Like, you're bugging. My first job is not gonna be in retail. No. So I am the oldest out of 6. So I started my nanny business. I made business cards, and one of my first gigs paid me around $18 an hour to babysit, So I was doing that. I was generating a lot of income.
How old were you when you were doing that?
I was 16.
16.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
A 16-year-old making 18 of that an hour?
Making 18, you're making more than your age.
I would have been reckless at that time making that kind of money.
Yeah, I was making a lot of money. I was shop. I bought a car. And I went into my senior year, and really I was generating like over $2,000 a week, just having fun with kids. I love children. That's one of the gifts God has given me, so it wasn't work, like I would nanny triplet 6-year-old boys in Wyckoff, New Jersey. Their parents were, one of them was a psychologist, the other was a doctor, and I would pick them up from school, bring them home, help, give them a snack, prepare them for bed. They had to pack their own lunch.
Wow.
They had to put their own pajamas on. So I loved it, and I'll never forget. I was working overnights I was working for a family where the mother was just a stripper, and she had 2 young children, but she worked late. So I would get off around 2 or 3 in the morning, and then I had my senior year at high school, in the morning. Yeah. And my first class was English. And my English teacher, he was a former Wall Street professional. And I would fall asleep, literally like snoring, dead, drooling. He's like, you need to stop. He said, you need to stop chasing money. You know, like, you have to focus on your education, or your future is going to be full of nothing. And like I said, I'm a rebel, so I just looked at him, and I kept doing what I was doing.
I'm still making this money.
Yeah, you know.
You're-
And fast forward, you know, I ended up getting pregnant with my first daughter in the spring of 2011. And I had a lot of fears. I had a lot of worries, a lot of insecurities. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was 19 years old. At the time, me and my husband, we were renting a house. You know, we were financially secure. But I knew that having a child was a huge responsibility. Like, I loved working with children, but the perk of working with children is that you get to leave.
You get to go.
Yes, go back with your parents. I'm good, you know? So, you know, I was just like, can we do this? You know, and we went to Toys R Us, or Babies R Us, and we were like looking at how much a car seat is, how much a crib is, how much formula is, how much our diapers, how much our wipes, how much our onesies.
That probably scared the crap out of you.
That's
guys.
probably like the worst thing
Damn,
to do.
this is gonna be tougher than it looks. in
Nah, I
some
was
way.
like,
Or you were
we could do
excited.
this. I was like, we
Yeah.
could afford this. We can do this.
Oh, so yeah,
That would've
so
scared
that's
me.
A different, yeah, because one thing I hear from a lot of parents when they become parents, they're always like, condoms are cheaper. That's it.
Facts.
Condoms are
That's
cheaper.
not a lie,
You know?
guys, for all the listeners. Condoms
Yeah,
are
but-
cheaper. Don't be silly. Wrap your
Diapers,
willies, you
yeah.
know? Like, to the max. It is cheaper.
Yeah,
But
I mean, at this point, you were already pregnant.
I was
So,
already
Good
pregnant.
thing that you didn't think like other teenagers at the time. Was a lot of people they
Exactly.
think about giving abortion stuff like
Yeah.
that, and you know.
Absolutely. And I'm a free thinker. So all of my options were in front of me. You know what I mean? And I was really looking for what was going to be best, not just for me and my husband, but also for the child that I would bring into this world.
Yeah.
And we decided to follow through, and that her being born was the first time, like when I laid eyes on her, the day that I gave birth to her, I knew God loved me, that God didn't forget about me, that he cared about me, and that he loved me enough to give me such a perfect gift, you know. So that was the beginning of, oh, God loves me.
Your connection with God.
Yeah, and then I had my son, and I knew for sure that was my baby. He was a mama's boy. I'm like, oh, God really loves me. But we could never go to church. So at the time, my daughter was 1 year old. My son was about 4 months old. And my brother ended up planning a pregnancy with one of his girlfriends at the time. And when the baby was born, she was going through a lot of postpartum depression.
Yeah.
And she didn't want anything to do with the baby. And she weighed 4 pounds 8 ounces. Her name was Amethyst, after the purple stone. And I stepped up. They ended up signing their rights over to me, and I adopted her. And I was tandem nursing. I'm a breastfeeding mom. I'm pro breastfeeding. I was breastfeeding my son, who was 4 months old, and my niece, who I'd recently adopted, who became my daughter, and she was 3 weeks old. And it was a lot, you know. And I wanted to go to church, but my husband was working on Sundays from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So I couldn't because of schedule conflicts. I saw this ad on Facebook for a baby dedication. I love babies. I'm like, oh, what's that? Sounds cool. I'm going to go. I called my husband, like, listen, I saw this cool ad on Facebook, and I'm going to visit this church, and I don't care if you're coming. I'm going to pack up all 3 babies, and we're going to go. And on March 20th, 2014, 3 days before the baby dedication at the church I planned to visit, my daughter died. My daughter that I adopted.
Wow.
Oh my God.
She was 4 and a
So
half
sorry.
months old.
Yeah.
And I was devastated. You know, like when I stepped in to care for her and fill that role as her mother, it was to rescue her. It was to save her.
Yeah.
So to have her die, she died from SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome. Basically, they have no reason. They don't know. She was perfect. There was nothing wrong with her. It's almost like if God just touched her and took her back to heaven. And I felt like a failure. My world went black. And in retrospect, you know, it was just 3 days, but when I was living it, those 72 hours felt like the longest. It felt like an eternity where I couldn't function. I couldn't cook. I couldn't clean. I couldn't laugh. I couldn't play with my kids. I said, God, you're a God of miracles. I never experienced them, but I know that you could if you wanted to, and I need one because my kids need me. And we went to visit that church, and it was tragically beautiful because here I am. I'm picking out caskets. I'm picking out a dress for my baby to wear. And here we have these parents at this church dedicating their babies to God. It was beautiful. I was devastated. It was just like torturous almost for my soul. And I felt the presence of God there. I felt like we were home. And we kept on going. And that's how it ended up being. God ended up using the worst thing that ever happened to me to save me. You know, sometimes God has to flip our world upside down to get it right side up. You know, and as I continued going to church, I remember hearing things like, He died for you. You know, the price that Jesus paid on the cross was personal. And I'm like, why would you do that? I didn't have experience with unconditional love. I was always too loud, too brown, too much attitude, too fierce, too this, too that. So to get to know a God that says, no, you're everything I ever dreamed of. I don't want you to change. I created you like that. I didn't make a mistake. It was a lot for me to wrap my head around. And so I was like, you know what? I need to get to know this God because I want to see my daughter again. What do I need to do to get into heaven? And then I learned about grace and who Jesus was as a person. So if there's anything I could say to the people listening right now, Jesus was a real life person like me and you. Flesh, bone, blood. He lived just like Martin Luther King lived. He lived just like Gandhi lived. And I started learning about his life and how he lived and what his teachings were. And I was just mesmerized. And thank you, God, for restoring my faith, my heart, my hope, my life, my spirit. Without him, I don't know where I would be right now. It's actually going to be 5 years since my daughter died on March 20th, 2019.
Wow. And I remember when I met you, I kind of heard a little about your story, and it was kind of like, what do you say about, how do you even, I'd never been able to deal with telling somebody, oh, I feel your pain, or because it's just it's like we were talking about earlier before, you guys were discussing pain, and it was just like, wow, that pain, it made mine shrink, right? It made whatever I was looking at as like huge, it made me think like, oh, if she's doing it, then there's no excuse for me. It's kind of like when I met Elido, when he was going through his cancer, and I was like, if he's going through cancer and he's out here, building a business, what's my excuse? It was like, that gave me the wow factor of like, and to really just look at my things and say, you're bigger than all this. This isn't as bad as you think, right? And like you said, pain is pain, we can't imagine the pain that you endured. But I can say, not glad that had to be the pain you endured, but I'm glad that it made you who you are today, because it's a reason why you're here today, because I see what you're doing online, I see what you're doing on Instagram, I see what you're doing where that energy that I met from the beginning, when we met in MLM, where it was just like, I'm not used to this loud type of excited person, and I'll be honest, I wasn't always like happy to hear it, because I'll be like, what is she so happy about, and how can she be so loud? But it now that you look back at it, you're like, wow, like you really are can put yourself in between, put your name next to the definition of overcoming things. Like and like, I don't know the exact word, but just that energy, that energy where it's just like contagious, because like, I would be like, yo, she's mad loud, but I'll smile, right? Like, I'll smile still. I'll be laughing, and I'll be like, yo.
I don't like this. I think I like this. I'm confused. What's going on here?
It was that, and it was just like, yo, I wonder, all right, so hearing that, right? Hearing you, because I heard, before hearing your story, I would hear you speak, and I would just hear you loud, and I'll be like, yo, she must be having it all figured out right now, right? And then hearing your stories, like, how the hell is she smiling right now? Like, you know, there'll be times where, you know, you'll cry and your tears will come out, and then it's just like, wow, but you still smile. You still worry about making somebody else smile. So how did that evolve, you know, into what you're doing right now, where you just, you know, told us that you just officially signed your papers
Thank you.
Congratulations on your new venture and your new business. We wish all the success.
Thank you. I
towards
received
that.
that.
Congrats.
Absolutely.
I affirm
And the fitness world, how did that come about where you're like, you know what, I'm going to take this and I'm going to sculpt people just like I sculpted myself? Because you have a great story also with that.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you. When I think back to, so Chico and I met, to catch you guys, to get you up to speed, Chico and I met doing network marketing. And I thank God for, you know, the company and the season that God put me into that company, because it gave me hope. I'm a girl from the hood. So I always knew, like, I always had $1 billion dreams. Like, I was like, I would dream about having, like, a walk-in closet of Christian Louboutins. You know, I dreamed of having, like, I dream of having a Tesla Model X. You know, sending it out to the universe, because if we ask, we shall receive. If we knock, the door shall be open to us, right? So I always had these big dreams, but I didn't know how. You know, so
That
being in
is the question, is always how.
How?
That's the big, what do I do? How?
Yes, how? So when I was in those events and I would be so excited, it was because I found the how. I felt like I found the how. I felt they were giving us this system that was like, if you follow this system, this is what you're going to get. I said, okay. For real, this is what I'm going to get. You sure? This is real? Because if this is real, I'm going to kill it. Because I've always been someone of influence. And prior to knowing Jesus, I used my influence for evil.
Yo, her face is everything.
I believe her. Just her face was like, all right, I believe you.
When I say evil, I mean I would get people to get drunk. Like like I said, I always was an entrepreneur, so I was always making money. So I would throw house parties in my own home that my parents didn't live with me. I would supply liquor. I would supply, you know.
Yeah, your own little club going on.
Yeah, literally.
$10.
You know, so I could influence people to do that. I'm an influencer, right?
Yeah.
So coming to know Christ and coming to learn about entrepreneurship and a way where you could earn 7 figures, because that's what really was exciting to me, in a legal way, in a fun way. It was enough to make me scream, make me cry, make me feel like, all right, it doesn't matter what my circumstances are. If this depends on my work ethic, I'm going to outwork everybody. And in January of 2014, actually, I'm lying, in January of around 2013, I was very insecure. I weighed over 245 pounds. I've always been like a fat kid. I was a fat girl. I was a fat teenager. I was a fat adult. Like, no exaggeration. I weighed over 240 pounds. I was literally obese. And I would make excuses. Like, if I had a personal trainer, if I was rich, if I had a chef. Because I'm Puerto Rican, I'm a Latina. So, arroz con gandules, chuleta frita, todo eso. That was my favorite. Ensalada de papa todos los días.
man.
Yum.
Oh,
You
man.
know, so I was just like, you know what? I was tired of feeling insecure. I was tired of wanting the lights off when I was going to be intimate with my husband. I was tired of wanting to leave my shirt on when I was going to be intimate with my husband. I was tired of, you know, feeling like I couldn't wear a dress unless I had a faja on, even though I love fajas, I love corsets, I love shapewear. But there's a difference between loving it and then feeling like you don't look right without it.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? It's going to take me 10 years, but I'm going to get right. And when I'm in my 30s, I'm going to look and I'm going to be fit and healthy and active. And a lot of chronic diseases run in my family, like cancer, multiple sclerosis, diabetes, you know, heart conditions. So I knew that just an active and healthy lifestyle would prevent that. You know, being a mother, you know, before I became a mother, I used to be like, I don't want to get old. I want to be young forever. But once you become a parent, it's like, no, I want to live forever and I want to be healthy. I don't want to be bedbound, wheelchair bound. I don't want to, you know, be chained down and not be able to use my limbs because I was irresponsible with my health and with the choices that I made.
You want to be able to outrun your kids, not try to be like, yo, you're walking too quick, I'm out of breath.
De verdad.
You want to be...
That was how I was.
Yeah.
You know, I was out of breath, I was tired, And I made a decision. I'm going to do what it takes every day. So I began reading books, learning, studying, educating myself, unlearning, unlearning some more.
That is key right there.
Yeah.
What you're saying. Unlearning.
Yeah.
Unlearning
You
is,
haven't heard people
'cause-
say that.
Right? Because when you learn new things, it means you have to unlearn old
Yeah.
things because those old things were causing your pattern. You need to break that
Exactly.
pattern, and that's something we don't do because we learn new things, we apply it, but we're still doing the old thing at the same
Yeah,
time. So
sometimes-
how does it work?
We don't apply what we learn. Most people, I would say like 99.9% of people don't apply what they learn, because if everybody applied what they learn, the world would be a different place.
Yeah.
So for me, I heard this quote and it haunts me. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yes.
So I already knew. I could look in the mirror and I knew that the munchies, the brownies, that soda, those chuletas, arroz con gandules, todo eso,
Same result.
I knew what the result was.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. So I was willing to do something different. And I was willing to get out of my comfort zone. And my husband is a very picky eater. He's the only child. And literally the only vegetable he grew up eating was lettuce, which, for information, is not lettuce.
I was about to say that.
He's like, I can relate.
Newsflash, lettuce is not a vegetable. It's like
No, it's
80% water.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I believe it in my mind, right? It comforts me.
Yes, and I'm sorry, but I wasn't going to be one of those wives that made 2 meals. So I had to get very creative with my dinners. I've always loved cooking. And so I would have to dice up the vegetables really small so that he wouldn't see it. Instead of using white rice, I'll use brown rice, and I'll use, achote to give it that yellow color. And beans, instead of using sazon, and then I'll be like, ha, guess what you ate? Asparagus, broccoli, cucumbers, it's all in there. How was it? It was banging, right?
What did you do it? What
I
did
love
you do
the
with
fact that she was like, ha,
Yeah.
guess what you just ate?
I know she was just dying for him to put that
te
fork
gustó.
down, just finish eating that
Yes, a ti te
Oh,
gustó.
anxious.
So wait, the
Estaba
broccoli.
delicioso.
You chopped it up and you did what? You put it in the rice?
I would chop it up and I'll cook it with the meats, and
okay.
I'll cook it in the rice, so you wouldn't see it, but
Oh,
you're still
that's
getting all of the
genius.
nutritional value.
Wow.
So
I'm doing that.
Yes,
Because I don't like broccoli. I mean, I do like it. I don't mind it, but
If it's chicken broccoli.
I just don't like. I don't like eating it. I just don't like eating. But if I
Yeah.
have it chopped up, I made I can make juices out of it too. I
Yeah,
make juices out of it, so I could
absolutely.
drink it and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But it's like eating it is weird. So doing that's a great idea.
Yeah,
I'ma
that's
try that.
an amazing tip that all of the listeners could take. If you're
Yeah.
a picky eater, number 1, grow up. And really grow up. Number 2, something that you can do is fool yourself.
Yeah.
Chop it up really small. You're not going to taste it. You're still going to get all the nutritional value and the results that everybody wants,
I'm gonna do that with all my veggies now. Chop it up
Yeah.
into tiny little pieces.
So-
and just sprinkle it everywhere. I can't see you no more. Great,
Yes.
I'm gonna eat you now.
Yes, absolutely. So
He's gonna be sprinkling on cereal.
Yeah.
I don't
I
about
know
cereal.
him.
yes.
Serious.
So it was 2013, and remember, I had 3 children at the time,
Yeah.
all under the age of 1.
Oh man.
So
much work.
Hectic.
I was a
So
stay-at-home
much
mom, because that's something that God put on my heart. He said, I want you to be a stay-at-home mom. I was like, huh? I'm independent. I like to make my own money. What you mean? You want me to be a stay-at-home mom? So I talked to my husband about it, and he's like, okay, I'm going to work. And honestly, I have the best husband in the world.
That's awesome.
I
Shout
do.
out to him.
Shout out
That's
to my
awesome.
husband. And no, he don't got a brother, so fall back. So he said, yeah. So my oldest at the time was 1.
Oh.
Like I said, my youngest was 3 weeks old. My son was 4 months old. And here I am, I got to make this work. So I would work out for 20 minutes a day in my living room. And fast forward 8 months, I lost 100 pounds.
Wow. Congrats on those
months.
results. That's dedication right
Yeah.
Yeah, a
And
lot.
then, yeah. And it was amazing. But to be honest with you, I'm a Latina. So I lost the weight, but I also lost my curves.
there. Okay.
And my booty, what the hell? My husband is an ass man. I need to have an ass back there. So he could, when he look at me, he could like what he sees. So
Hence the mind, booty, and soul.
exactly.
Yeah. Don't forget it.
Exactly. So I was just learning, squat. I'll do 100 squats a day. My booty wasn't growing. I would always get compliments on my legs, but my glutes, if you want to be, professional and
Yeah.
scientific, I wasn't getting the results.
Yeah.
So, fast forward, my daughter dies. And I just held on to the hope that God was going to turn it around for good. I kept working out, kept eating healthy, kept going to church, and kept listening for the Lord. And then something else the Lord told me was like, I want you to homeschool. And I'm like, me homeschool? Come on, God. Now you're bugging. I'm a girl from the hood, raised by a single mom, and you want me to be a stay-at-home homeschooling mom? Like, I don't know. Talk to my husband. Okay. That's what you want to do? Let's do it. And so I began educating myself on that because, the public, I love school. I love education. I've always been a naturally intelligent girl. I didn't have to study a lot. I've always maintained like a 4.0 GPA. It was easy for me. But at the same time, the public school system puts our children in a box. And with the ratios of teaching one teacher to 25 kids,
It's crazy.
there's so many children that fall between the cracks and get lost in the system. So I'm like, okay, we're going to...